Here is the complete cinematic story, written as one continuous emotional journey with a strong hook, suspense, redemption, and a satisfying ending. The day they called Clara Whitmore a thief, they did not just destroy her reputation, they tore apart the one home she had spent years protecting. Before hundreds of watching eyes, a wealthy merchant named Everett Caldwell pointed at her trembling hands and accused her of stealing a small wooden box containing the gold savings of his late mother. Clara stood frozen in the center of the village market, her faded blue dress stained with dust, while whispers spread around her like wildfire. Nobody asked why she would risk everything for a box of money she had never touched. Nobody cared that she had spent 7 years caring for Everett's aging mother when everyone else had disappeared. They saw the frightened servant, the poor woman, the easy person to blame. And just as Clara was about to be dragged away, Everett opened the box they had found in her room, expecting to see his family's missing fortune. Instead, what he saw inside made his face lose every trace of anger, because beneath the folded cloth was something that proved Clara had been protecting the family all along. If stories about kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances mean something to you, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share this story with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to our channel so our family can continue sharing stories that touch the heart. Clara had never imagined that her life would become a battle over a box of gold. She had grown up on the edge of the village in a tiny house with a leaking roof, where her mother taught her that poverty was painful but dishonesty was worse. From childhood, Clara learned to survive by working. She carried baskets at the market, cleaned wealthy homes, washed clothes, and later became the trusted caregiver to Everett's mother, Beatrice Caldwell, a proud but gentle woman whose health had slowly weakened after her husband died. Beatrice had once been feared throughout the village because of her strict nature, but Clara discovered the tenderness hidden beneath that stern exterior. She helped Beatrice walk across the garden each morning, prepared her meals, read her letters when her eyesight worsened, and patiently listened whenever loneliness made the older woman restless. Over the years, Clara stopped feeling like an employee and became more like a daughter. Beatrice, in return, quietly protected Clara from the cruelty of people who believed poverty was proof of bad character. When Beatrice died, everything changed. Everett returned from the city and took control of the family business, a large trading company that supplied grain, cloth, and household goods to surrounding communities. He was successful, disciplined, and respected, but grief had hardened him. He struggled to accept that the mother who had raised him was truly gone. His memories became tangled with suspicion because Beatrice had left behind several valuable belongings, including family jewelry, financial records, and a small wooden box containing gold coins collected over decades. Everett believed the box represented his mother's final security. He searched every room of the house and found nothing. Then one morning, his younger cousin, Meredith, who had secretly resented Clara for years, planted a dangerous idea in his mind. She reminded him that Clara had access to every room in the house, that Clara had been close to Beatrice, and that poor people sometimes became desperate when opportunity appeared. Everett tried to reject the accusation, but grief made him vulnerable, and suspicion began growing where trust had once lived. The accusation came during the busiest market day of the month, when merchants crowded the square and farmers arrived from neighboring settlements. Everett stood beside his guards and announced that the family's gold was missing. Before Clara could even understand what was happening, several people surrounded her. A search of her small room had supposedly uncovered the wooden box beneath her bed. Clara was devastated because she knew she had never seen it before. She fell to her knees and begged them to believe her, but the crowd had already decided what kind of woman she was. Someone called her a thief. Someone else said she had probably been stealing for years. Clara felt every insult like a stone being placed upon her chest. She looked toward Everett, hoping that the years she had spent caring for his mother would mean something, but he stood rigid and silent. Then Everett opened the wooden box. At first there appeared to be nothing unusual. Beneath several pieces of folded fabric were a few gold coins, exactly the kind that belonged to the family. The crowd gasped because it seemed like the proof they had been waiting for. Clara closed her eyes, certain that her life was over. But when Everett lifted the fabric fully, he discovered a second layer inside the box. Beneath it was a bundle of papers tied with a faded ribbon, along with an old photograph of Beatrice standing beside Clara in the garden. The papers were not ordinary documents. They were receipts, land records, medical bills, and handwritten notes from Beatrice. Everett began reading them, and the anger in his face slowly changed into confusion. The documents revealed something Clara had hidden for years. During the last 2 years of Beatrice's life, the family business had suffered serious financial losses. Everett had been living in the city and had no idea how close the company came to collapse. Beatrice had quietly sold several of her personal valuables to keep workers paid and suppliers from abandoning the business. Clara had helped her organize the payments, but she had never told Everett because Beatrice had insisted that he should be allowed to focus on rebuilding his life rather than carrying the burden of his mother's sacrifices. The gold in the wooden box was not the missing fortune at all. It was only a small portion of what Beatrice had managed to save, and the papers showed that Clara had spent much of her own wages buying medicine and food when Beatrice's funds were nearly gone. Everett stared at one particular receipt for several seconds. It showed that Clara had used almost all of her savings to pay for a treatment Beatrice desperately needed. She had never asked to be reimbursed. She had never told Everett. She had simply helped because she loved the woman who had become family. The room grew silent as the truth spread through the crowd. The woman they had called a thief had actually been protecting the very people accusing her. But the mystery was not over. Everett carefully examined the final papers and discovered a note from Beatrice explaining that she had hidden the wooden box herself. She had written that the gold was never meant to be inherited as wealth. It was meant to be used to help workers and families who would suffer if the business failed. Beatrice had feared that Everett would become too focused on money after her death, so she had hidden the box until he learned an important lesson about trust and responsibility. She had specifically named Clara as the person she trusted most to recognize who genuinely needed help. Everett's hands began shaking. He looked around the room and realized what he had done. He had believed a rumor more quickly than he believed the woman who had served his mother faithfully for years. He had embarrassed her in front of the entire community. He had treated poverty like evidence of guilt. Worst of all, he had ignored the one person who understood his mother better than anyone else. Before anyone could say another word, a young delivery worker named Owen Hartley stepped forward. Owen had been helping Everett manage shipments and had noticed something strange earlier that morning. He remembered seeing Meredith entering the storage room before the market opened. He had assumed she was checking the ledgers, but when he mentioned it, Meredith became visibly frightened. The guards searched the storage room and discovered a hidden compartment behind several sacks of grain. Inside was a leather pouch containing the rest of the family's missing valuables and documents. It became clear that Meredith had stolen them herself and planted the wooden box in Clara's room to hide her crime. She had been taking small amounts from the business for months because of gambling debts and believed Clara would be the perfect person to blame. The truth shattered Meredith's confidence. She had expected Clara's poverty to make her an easy target, but she had never expected the evidence hidden by Beatrice to expose everything. Yet what happened next surprised everyone even more. Clara did not celebrate Meredith's downfall. She did not demand revenge. She simply looked at the woman who had nearly destroyed her life and asked Everett to remember that people sometimes make terrible choices when they become trapped by fear, shame, and desperation. Everett was stunned by Clara's mercy. He had expected bitterness, but Clara understood something he did not. Justice mattered, but so did what happened after justice. Meredith eventually admitted everything and surrendered the stolen property. She faced the consequences of her actions, but Everett chose not to destroy her future. Instead, he required her to repay what she had taken and work honestly until the debt was settled. He also helped her receive counseling for the gambling addiction that had driven her into desperation. For the first time, Meredith was forced to confront not only the damage she had caused but the person she had become. The deepest change, however, happened inside Everett. He realized that his mother's greatest inheritance was not gold, property, or a successful company. It was the ability to recognize goodness even when it appeared in someone society had overlooked. He publicly apologized to Clara before the same community that had watched her humiliation. He admitted that grief had made him suspicious and that pride had made him blind. Then he offered Clara control of a new community support fund created from Beatrice's savings, asking her to help families facing hardship because he trusted her judgment more than anyone's. Clara accepted, but not because she wanted wealth or power. She accepted because she believed Beatrice's final lesson should not die with her. In the months that followed, the fund paid school fees for children whose parents had fallen on hard times, helped struggling farmers buy seeds, provided meals for elderly villagers, and assisted workers whose wages had been delayed. Clara became known throughout the community not as the woman who had been accused of stealing, but as the woman who had turned humiliation into compassion. One warm afternoon, nearly a year after the accusation, Clara stood beneath a large tree beside the market while children ran through the grass and merchants prepared their stalls. Everett approached her carrying the old photograph of Clara and Beatrice. He had placed the picture in a beautiful frame, but Clara smiled when she saw it because she remembered the original, worn and folded inside the wooden box. She understood then that Beatrice had known exactly what she was doing. The gold had been hidden to test Everett, but the photograph and papers had been hidden to reveal Clara's true heart. Everett told Clara through a letter that he now kept in his office that he had once thought wealth meant having enough money that no one could hurt you. His mother had taught him otherwise. Real wealth, he had finally learned, was having people around you who remained kind when they had every reason to become bitter. Clara read the letter with tears in her eyes, because she understood that the greatest victory was not clearing her name. It was becoming free from the pain of needing everyone to believe in her. She knew who she was before the accusation, and she knew who she was afterward. The cruelty of others had not changed her character. It had revealed it. The old wooden box was eventually placed in a glass cabinet inside the community center, not as a symbol of gold, but as a reminder of what happened when suspicion was allowed to speak louder than truth. Children who visited were told the story of the woman who was called a thief and yet chose forgiveness when she had every reason to choose hatred. They learned that people should never be judged by their clothes, their homes, their income, or the mistakes of their past. They learned that truth may be delayed, but it does not become weaker simply because lies are louder. And Clara finally understood something that had taken her years to believe: sometimes life allows innocent people to be misunderstood, not because they are forgotten, but because their character is being revealed in a way no easy life ever could. She had lost her dignity in the eyes of the crowd for one painful afternoon, but she gained something far greater. She gained the freedom to forgive herself for ever believing that other people's opinions determined her worth. Before the story ends, take a moment and think about this lesson: sometimes the person everyone rejects is the very person carrying the kindness that can save them. What would you have done in Clara's place? Would you have forgiven the person who betrayed you, or would the wound have been too deep? Leave a meaningful comment and share the lesson you are taking from Clara's story, because your words may give hope to someone silently facing false accusations, rejection, or loneliness today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Because sometimes the greatest proof of a good heart is not how we behave when people love us, but how we remain kind when they have misunderstood us, judged us, and given us every reason to stop believing in humanity. Clara was called a thief, but in the end, she became the keeper of something far more valuable than gold: the trust, compassion, and hope of an entire community.